Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. I trust you've had a good week. It whizzed by in a whirlwind of time, isn't it? And life turns out to be so short. In your teenage years, you think it'll last forever. I remember being at boarding school here in Nairobi when I was 9, and a term was an eternity, and now a term is just a blink of an eye. This is a photograph I took in the afternoon yesterday from back of the Kapinski. I'd attended Africa 50 function here in Nairobi, and I'll give you some snippets a bit later. I was featured in a Portland communications report about how Africa tweets. Take a look at that report. It's really in depth. It gives quite a few insights into what's going on in that particular landscape. Dollar on a tear hit the highest level in a year, plus 7% since April. However, Donald Trump jaw-jawed and brought it down a little bit. The dollar's on a tear, hitting the highest level yesterday in a year, plus 7% since April. Its rise is set to tighten the squeeze on emerging markets. Dollar index up 4 months in a row, a run not seen for over 3 years. After the PBOC weakened the currency's fixing by the most in 2 years, the dollar blasted through 680. Like a knife through butter, says David Inglis. And that took me back to my article that I wrote about tariff wars, who blinks first, I asked. And I was saying that President Trump, after bashing on Justin Trudeau of Canada and Mexico's Enrique Pena Nieto, now upended, of course, and then firing a few broadsides at Europe, has now turned his attention to Xi Jinping and thrown him the keys, challenging him to a cheeky run. 3-month returns, the Chinese currency is now the worst performing currency in the Asia dollar index, minus 6.16%, says Sun Chartist. And reflecting on this tariff war, it seems that for now the US has the upper hand, but at the expense of a number of core constituencies, one of whom is the farm economy. The point that was being made by Jamie at Reuters about more pressure on emerging markets is something that I foresaw in February when I was talking about the end of halcyon days. From Latin Alcyone, the daughter of Aeolus, the wife of Ceres, when her husband died in a shipwreck, Alcyone threw herself into the sea, whereupon the gods transformed them both into halcyon birds, kingfishers. When Alcyone made her nest on the beach, waves threatened to destroy it. Aeolus restrained his winds and kept them calm during 7 days in each year so she could lay her eggs. These became known as the halcyon days, when storms do not occur. Today the term is used to denote a past period that is being remembered for being happy or successful. And I was making the point that we were exiting that low volatility, secure environment. And then prior to that, in September 2016, I warned mirrors on the ceiling, the pink champagne on ice. And I was saying if volatility spikes, positions are going to be reduced en masse. And we're seeing that in the commodity markets in particular. Or to put it another way and borrow the lyrics from the Eagles' Hotel California, mirrors on the ceiling, the pink champagne on ice. And she said, we are all just prisoners here of our own device. Last thing I remember, I was running for the door. I had to find the passage back to the place I was before. Relax, said the nightman, we are programmed to receive. You can check out anytime you like. You can never leave. And what I was saying there is what's clear is that we're at the fag end of this party. And fag ends can last a long time, which they did. Home thoughts, and I apologize for that. The power is gone. This is one of the challenges when you are in the frontier markets. That moon which the sky never saw even in dreams has risen again, said Rumi. Earth's only natural satellite is the moon, and it is normally hidden during daytime as it lies over the horizon out of sight. This image shows the moon. It was taken from Malaga. This is via the Daily Mail. Returning to Rumi at night, I opened the window and asked the moon to come and press its face against mine. Rumi again. Breathe into me, close the language door, and open the love window. The moon won't use the door, only the window. The incredible detail of this picture shows the moon with colors and details normally hidden. By using similar methods to that of capturing a solar eclipse, the photographer saw it lit up the moon. Look at the moon in the sky, not the one in the lake, says Rumi. Will BL tweeted stars rotating above an ancient baobab tree, the island of lost baobabs in Botswana. That took me to one of my favorite Rumi quotes. We come spinning out of nothingness, scattering stars like dust. This is a Bedike-type fierce masker with attendant Amawibia, circa 1935. Photo G.I. Jones. Looks rather fierce, doesn't it? According to the Wall Street Journal, the minds of infants are a mystery, but new brain research suggests that their inner lives may resemble a dream or a psychedelic trip. What a beautiful sunrise, I feel so blessed. That's from Bav Pindoria, Mombasa. A cheetah with a dick kill, photographed in the Serengeti National Park, Tanzania, again by Will BL. And I tweeted back, dicks pair up for life and also die from heartbreak if they lose their lifelong partner. I said, therefore, there is another dick somewhere dying. And God said, let there be light. Ranthambore, India, Sachin Rai. Madiba's light shone so brightly, even from that narrow Robben Island cell, that he could inspire a young college student on the other side of the world to make me consider the small role I might play in bending the arc of the world towards justice. Barack Obama. Political reflections. The UAE and China have a long-standing relationship and shared interests. Both believe in peace, stability, development, investment, and planning for the future. I have full confidence in the Chinese president's vision and seek to build on this historic visit to realize our common goals. That's Mohammed bin Zayed. The investigators are sure the suspects, are Russians, said the source. This is regarding Novichok. Adding security camera images have been cross-checked with records of people who entered the country. If they've got some hard evidence, it will be interesting. President Trump calls out very aggressive Montenegro in latest NATO jibe. Russian military intelligence planned an armed coup d'etat to assassinate the Montenegrin prime minister in 2016 because they wanted to thwart the country's NATO membership. Now Trump questions our collective defense of Montenegro. Did Putin put him up to this? Takes me back to December 2016, my piece, We Have a Deviate Tomahawk. My starting point at that time was the election of President Trump, because hindsight will surely show that Russia ran a seriously sophisticated program of interference, mostly digital. Don DeLillo, who's a prophetic 21st century writer, writes as follows in one of his short stories. The specialist is monitoring data on his mission console when a voice breaks in, a voice that carried with it a strange and unspecifiable poignancy. He checks in with his flight dynamics and conceptual paradigm officers at Colorado Command. We have a deviate Tomahawk. We copy, there's a voice. We have gross oscillation here. There's some interference. I've gone redundant, but I'm not sure it's helping. We are clearing an out frame to locate source. Thank you, Colorado. It is probably just selective noise, your negative red on the step function quad. It was a voice, I told them. We have just received an affirm on selective noise. We will correct Tomahawk. In the meantime, advise you to stay redundant. The voice, in contrast to Colorado's metallic pigeon, is a melange of repartee, laughter and song, with the quality of purest, sweetest sadness. Somehow we were picking up signals from radio programs of 40, 50, 60 years ago. DNI Dan Coates, I don't know what happened in that meeting between President Trump and Vladimir Putin. If he had asked me how that ought to be conducted, I would have suggested a different way, he said. A South Korean court has sentenced former President Park Geun-hye to 8 more years in prison on Friday after finding her guilty of charges of causing loss of government funds and interfering in the 2016 parliamentary election. Let's move on to international markets. Just published front page of the Financial Times UK edition puts KPMG squarely in the spotlight. Trump told CNBC that he was not thrilled with the Fed over rate hikes. I don't like all of this work that we're putting into the economy and then I see rates going up, he said. The president's comments may skew the committee in a hawkish direction, said Michael Ferroni, chief economist at JP Morgan, following Trump's criticism of the central bank in an interview on CNBC. If a decision is a close call, then the appearance of kowtowing to the president may bias them toward raising rates. Interesting. Let's move on to the currency markets. Obviously, jaw from Trump saw the dollar come off, I think, 1-year highs. But Euro got up this morning to 116.54. We're now at 116.37. Dollar index got as low as 95, just below is now at 95.02. Japanese yen rallied all the way to 112.35. We're now at 112.41. Swiss franc back below parity, 0.9986. The pound right at 130, the figure. Aussie 0.7369. India rupee record low set early in the morning, but we bounced off that. We're back at 68.875. South Korean won at 1131.60. The rial 382.99. Egyptian pound 17.8945. And the South African rand, about which I was quite bearish, as I was saying, was on the top of its range, is backed up back to 1349.26. Trump told CNBC in an interview that our country is going up, and I have to tell you, our currency is going up, and I have to tell you, it puts us at a disadvantage. The dollar gauge promptly erased a gain of as much as 0.63% before ending the day a bit higher. By taking down the dollar, Trump is playing a dangerous game. This is a chart from Chi Girl of the dollar index at resistance again. This is the third time we visited 95.50. And then came off it. It was obviously on a roller coaster as White House has issued its statement. UK retail sales in June were far weaker than forecast, sending sterling crashing below 130. We've just regained it, but let's see how long we can hold it for. Euro dollar last at 116.40. 10 cent minus 22% from highs year to date. And Sun Chartist is asking, is the FANG time up? Commodity markets went back to Hotel California. Last thing I remember, I was running for the door. I had to find the passage back to the place I was before. And Bloomberg is reporting there's no end in sight for commodity crash, with charts sending bear signals. Bloomberg Commodity Index has tumbled about 10% from a high in May, amid mounting concerns that a trade war could derail global growth, curbing demand for everything from aluminium to soybeans. Even gold, a traditional haven asset, failed to catch a bid as the dollar strengthened and the Federal Reserve signaled more increases in borrowing costs this year, curbing the investment appeal of the non-interest-bearing metal. Copper, often viewed as a barometer of global economic growth, saw its 14-day relative strength index fall on July 2nd below 30, considered by traders who study charts as a sign an asset is poised for a rebound. This hasn't happened, with the metal losing about 9% this month. Relax, said the Nightman. We are programmed to receive. You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. The energy sector remains a bright spot for commodities as crude oil prices move higher. And crude isn't alone. Efforts to clear the air in China, brightening the outlook for high-grade iron ore. Soybeans have taken center stage after China slapped tariffs on a swathe of American farm goods. And I said it on the 9th of July, the Chinese government has been quite surgical in its response and is targeting the farm economy in particular. So it was an awful day for commodities. This is a series of prices from CNBC.Dollar. This is a real gold price from 1947 to 2018, set in 2018 dollars from Tom Keene. Gold, however, jumped as Trump says not happy about interest rates going up. We're last at 1222.50, 1222.75. Metals getting absolutely smashed again, as you can see. Copper below 6,000 a metric ton for the first time in a year. And then this interesting correlation seems commodities are taking their cues from the Chinese yuan, more than simply reacting inversely to just dollar strength. That's David Inglis. Plot twist. Chinese zombies feast on new Silk Road projects to ease layoff fears. They survive on a drip feed of state subsidies and can suck the lifeblood out of a bloated workforce. Zombie companies live in the twilight world of China's corporate jungle. With heartbeats that can barely be detected, most of them lurk in the shadows of the sprawling state-owned enterprise sector, which employs more than 20 million people and is the largest in the world. Last year, a report compiled by the OECD showed there were 51,000 SOEs in China, valued at $29.2 trillion. To put that into perspective, at the end of 2017, the country's corporate debt was 159% of GDP. 14th of May, I wrote about emerging markets, saying this has all the ingredients for baking a good old-fashioned crisis. Take a look at this. MSCI's index of emerging market currencies hit a one-year low as the rand, peso, real, Chinese yuan, and Turkish lira all fell heavily. Look at this chart. Turkey's large bank stocks are down a massive 41% since January. That's JS Blockland. Indian rupee hit a record low of 69.126. That's according to Sun Chartist. Let's move on to Africa. As Kabila spoke, he spoke in Parliament, spends his speech on listing a litany of statistics. Congo waits for him to take a position on his political future. And I responded to Timo Muller. That really is a wonderful beard that Kabila has. Polsec analyst says a politician, a thief, and a warlord walks into the bar. The barman asks, "So what will it be, Mr. Kabila?" I take you back to June 2016 when I spoke about how Kabila outwitted Moishi Katumbi by removing him from the street in the Congo entirely. And I was asking, might this prove a cleverly administered TKO, technical knockout? And I was also referencing Paul Virilio, who says the revolutionary contingent attains its ideal form not in the place of production, but in the street, where for a moment it stops being a cog in the technical machine and itself becomes a motor, a machine of attack. In other words, a producer of speed. Interesting article by David Pilling, and in it he says he's referring to Africa and why we should be more optimistic. And he's talking to an individual who says his top investment tip, made only half jokingly, was beachfront property in Somalia. Rosling Sr. saw the locus of world trade shifting from the Atlantic and the Pacific to the Indian Ocean as first Asia and then Africa escaped from poverty. His top investment tip, made only half jokingly, it was beachfront property in Somalia. Why are Gulf states rushing to gain a foothold in the Horn of Africa? This is a big story. Observers worry that this modern-day scramble for Africa could have dangerous consequences, not only for the region, but for other key powers from the Middle East to the US. According to a report by South Africa's ISS, Somalia is being increasingly battered, not only by the threat of pirates and the extremist group Al-Shabaab, but also by the growing menace of meddling from Middle Eastern actors, notably from the Gulf. And you've got Turkey, you've got Qatar, you've got the UAE, they're all coming to play there. You've got this rapprochement. It's a very, very interesting moment in the Horn of Africa's history. The Sudanese pound weakened to £46 to the dollar on the black market on Thursday compared to about £41 earlier in the week, a level traders called a record low. Eritrean troops have withdrawn from the Ethiopian border, reports the Eritrean press agency. And as I said, these 90 or so days represent the most consequential arrival of an African politician on the African stage since Mandela walked out of prison blinking in the sunlight. Addis Ababa, the new central bank governor, listened for 2 hours to the complaints of bankers and other business people. This has never happened before, one told me. That's Maggie Fick. China battles France for business in former African colonies. A fascinating article in Bloomberg talking about how China and France are battling for business in West Africa. Well worth reading. It's on rich wrap-ups. And I concluded by saying, actually, Emmanuel Macron and his Allez France team are seriously on the front foot, a la Viv Richards all over the continent. A worker monitors equipment in the control room at the Subra Dam. That's from that article in Bloomberg. South African all shares minus 5.42% year-to-date. Dollar versus rand backed up. Dollars strengthened. We're at 13.4926. Egyptian pound versus the dollar, 17.8945. Burying money in your backyard, that's a habit for some in Nigeria, as 50 million people remain unbanked. Big opportunity. Nigerian all share down 4.64% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange up 11.05% year to date. Safaricom and KCB are looking north as Ethiopia opens its market. Absolutely should be. Court halts new taxes on mobile money and kerosene. This is Business Daily. The High Court has suspended the implementation of new taxes imposed under the finance bill, including those on mobile money and kerosene. And also we've had a suspension of the Robin Hood tax. And I wrote about this severally. 25th of June, I was talking about the excise duty increase, and I said, don't kill the goose that lays the golden eggs. High Court suspends Robin Hood tax on bank transfers above 500,000 shillings. Badly thought out, bad idea, puts tremendous pressure on the wholesale capital markets. And I still think the government needs to cut taxes and cast the tax net wider. I attended this function with Africa 50 yesterday. And I'm also looking after a lunch session today with the African Development Bank President. I'm looking forward to that. Uhuru Kenyatta, governments need to be facilitators, not obstacles to private sector investment. If African private capital does not invest in our continent, why should anyone else? Uhuru asks. Africa 50 infrastructure will become a game changer in infrastructure financing. That's the president of the African Development Bank, who also said Kenyatta was meant to arrive at 11 and came at 10:25. If we all moved at that speed, Africa would leapfrog. That's the earliest I think President Kenyatta has turned up at any event. Alphabet to deploy balloon internet in Kenya with telecom in 2019. Alphabet's Loon said on Thursday it would deploy its system of balloons to beam high-speed internet access with Telecom Kenya from next year to cover rural and suburban populations, marking its first commercial deal in Africa. The terms of the deal were not disclosed. I said on the 6th of June about an M-Pesa foray in into Ethiopia. This can add up to 20% to Safaricom's share price. It's a big deal. Ethiopia is a 100 million market and ripe for the taking, I say. You want to see Safaricom share price data, that link is on the website as well. The Kenya shilling, best performing currency in Africa this year, 100.75. Nairobi all share up 1.13% year to date. NSE 20 down 11.49% year to date. Shopping mall tenants set for rent reprieve and supply glut, reports Business Daily. And I was talking about this in an article I wrote in early January when I said e-commerce and home-based deliveries have changed the world from London to China. I'm certain the same disruption is headed our way. I was saying a lot of commercial real estate will be legacy assets. Millennials, with their avocado eating and cryptocurrency trading ways, are just as likely to be African as they're European or American. Wishing you a tremendous weekend.